Bonsoir. Hello, everyone. Bienvenue. Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Micheline Chevrier. I've had the great fortune of working across Canada as a director, dramaturg, teacher, and at times as an artistic director. C'est avec grand plaisir que je suis ici ce soir, and it is a great honor to spend this time in the company of these amazing artists and colleagues. We would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of these lands that we each call home. We are privileged today to be able to enjoy the benefits that they bring and which support everything that we do. Turtle Island has always been a fertile place for plants, for trees, for animals, birds, for water, and for culture and creativity. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that we call this land home, and recognize them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. And I personally pledge to take better care of the land on which I live. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. It's one of 4 each year that bring us together to explore and fuel outstanding work in Canadian theatre. Tonight, you will hear from the 4 finalists for the 2022 Siminovitch Prize: Ravi Jain, Marie Brassard, Sherry J. Yoon, and Anne-Marie Kerr. Each of these shortlisted artists is making exciting work that challenges and delights their collaborators and their audiences, and each is a recognized and celebrated leader in their community and further afield. On the evening of December 1st, Canada's Top Theatre Prize will be awarded in an inspiring ceremony featuring intimate documentaries about each of the finalists. So to start this evening tonight, we've asked each of our finalists to prepare opening remarks. Well, a mini lesson of a kind, no longer than 7 minutes each, on an aspect of their craft about which they're passionate. Our hope is that if you are an artist, you will leave this conversation inspired and with some practical tools you can apply to your own practice. And if you are a theater goer, you will get a better understanding of the craft of directing. You will see a countdown clock appear when there's 30 seconds left for each finalist to wrap up their thoughts. Today's events will be primarily in English, avec un peu de français. Please take the time now to click the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and then select the language of your choice. S'il vous plaît, prenez le temps de regarder au bas de votre écran et choisissez la langue que vous désirez. I will give you a moment to do this. Now, wondering if Mr. Jain is with us right now. Yes.
I am.
Oh, lovely. Hi, Ravi.
Hi, Micheline.
So great to see. Oh la la, what a ride. Here you go. Ravi Jain from Toronto is a multi-award winning artist known for making politically bold and accessible theatrical experiences in both small indie productions and large theaters. As the founding artistic director of Why Not Theatre, Ravi has established himself as an artistic leader for his inventive productions, international collaborations, and innovative producing models, which are aimed to better support emerging artists. Tonight, Ravi will be speaking to us about finding freedom in process.
All right. Hi. Thank you, everybody out there in Zoom land. I'm so grateful to be part of this esteemed group of directors, and I hope that I can share an idea that will inspire and provoke you to think about creative process. So one of the first directing lessons I can remember was given to me by an American director named Anne Bogart. And it was, and I'm paraphrasing here, as a director, you can't make something happen, but you can create the space where something might happen. So over the years, I've come to realize that a major role in creating that space where something might happen is finding ways to free myself and my imagination from the invisible barriers and assumptions that confine the process of making theater. So without knowing it, creators run the risk of repeating the same process each time they make a show. And without really knowing it, they could be limiting not only what they make, but who they make it with. So every process I'm in begins with the who. No, not the 60s rock band, but rather the collaborators. Who are the people that will make up this room in which something might happen? So what is the right mix of people for the story we want to tell? Which leads me to the next step, or maybe the step that's happening kind of at the same time, which is deciding the what, the story, the theme, the subject. Once those two questions come into focus, then begins the fun, which is the how. How will we work in order to maximize the imaginations in the room, in order for us to all go somewhere we've never been and where we could never go alone on our own? And now that's not an easy task, because we've all been in processes that we deem to be good and ones that we deem to be bad. And those past experiences, they gently guide us into patterns of repeated processes. But the creation process needs to be reshaped and reimagined every time, depending on the people in the room and the story being told, because the people are different. Their identities are different. Their needs and imaginations are different. And so the hope for me is that we can harness the power of this difference and make something that is, well, different. Or rather, something that is unique because it is the sum of the individual parts. The key to unlocking that possibility is allowing people to be their fullest selves, allowing them to find leadership within the process, and most importantly, allowing space for their imaginations and perspectives to influence the who, the hows, and the whats. So there are so many examples to share about process. I'm going to try to share a few in the hopes that they illuminate how working with different people has helped me to break free from traditional processes. So working with non-actors is a great way to realize that there are no rules to process except the ones we invent. Assumptions challenged. Rehearsals always start on time. Rehearsals begin with a kind of warm-up or game. Rehearsals are even important or necessary. So working with my mother or with environmental activist Dr. Tara Cullis, we never started on time. And we would always just start with a chat. The ritual warm-up was replaced with a hearty chat of the day's events or the evening's plans or anything that was on their minds. It relaxed, it provided comfort and trust. So for my mom, who never wrote anything down, who never wanted to rehearse, I constantly had to follow her impulses and find playful ways to meet her where she was at. For Tara, she needed to know exactly what we were doing before we did anything. So I had to ensure that there were never any surprises and that she felt in control the whole time. So in both processes, I could have a plan, but it always had to adapt to meet the actors where they were at. My plan couldn't go faster than them. It couldn't be more clever than they were. The process always has to stay honest. So speed is an interesting invisible barrier in the process for people to engage. So I created a production of Hamlet that was bilingual, both in English and American Sign Language. And at the center of the story was a deaf actor, Don Janney Burley. And in our first creation process in 2017, in our final week before tech, we had a disastrous first run of the show. The ensemble was not together, everything was too fast, and Dawn was behind, failing, and she just couldn't keep up. And in fact, for most of the process, this was true. The speed of the way we work was dominated by the hearing people. You know, we get excited by an idea, we talk over each other, we're all basically communicating in the same way, so our understanding is the same. So in the majority of the process we worked at, the pace that we worked at, it had Dawn constantly out of breath. She was catching up and she was always behind. So in that disastrous first run of the show, we realized that if we're truly all to be together, and if Dawn truly is the center of the show, then her pace needs to be the pace of the show as well as the process. So from then on, her metronome was the beat. Her rhythm was the center. And she was no longer behind. In fact, she could now actually lead. And when she could, everything came together. What I'm saying is the barrier wasn't her ability. The barrier was the speed we were forcing her to play at. So when working with anyone, no matter who they are, it's always easier to blame an individual for not succeeding and not challenging the process. But the question to ask is, what is wrong with the process that doesn't allow this person to thrive and tell the story to the best of their ability? Because if you remove the barriers in the process, then the job of the director is easy. The space has been created where something might happen. And it always happens. And mistakes happen, right? The creative process is full of emotions, feelings, power dynamics. And the important thing as a director is to be able to be a good listener, to be articulate as a communicator, and to not fear conflict or accountability. And it's very hard work, but it's very rewarding. So I'm here at Stanford University, where Prince Hamlet, that show I was talking about, is on its third tour since its creation in 2017. This is one of the biggest tours we've ever done. It's all throughout the United States. And so what's amazing about it is so many deaf audiences are responding to the show and seeing themselves represented on stage. So I share that as an amazing testament, not only to the artists, to their work, but also the process. That's me.
Thanks, Ravi. That's great. Thanks. Third tour. Wow, amazing. And now, we will hear from Marie Brassard. Marie Brassard de Montréal est une voix singulière dans le paysage théâtral contemporain. À la lisière entre art numérique et art vivant, elle soumet la matière artistique et humaine aux lois de la transformation. En ressortent des œuvres d'une grande maturité érigées sur les versants de nos réalités virtuelles et rêvées. Tonight, Marie will be speaking to us about seeing the unseen and hearing the unsaid. Merci, Marie.
Merci à vous, merci. Alors, voir l'invisible et entendre le non-dit. J'étais là quand ma mère est décédée, j'avais 15 ans, et je me souviens d'avoir senti le souffle sortir d'elle. Et j'ai pensé, c'est comme si on était fait de souffle. Et alors qu'elle s'évanouissait dans l'air, elle devenait un spectre fabriqué de ce vent très léger. Il y a eu un moment de suspension et je me souviens qu'une de mes tantes a dit « Ferme ses yeux, Marie, tu vas te souvenir de ça toute ta vie. » Et c'est ce que j'ai fait. Et en faisant cette proposition, ma tante a mis en scène ce moment. Elle a proposé une manière d'associer une image à cet instant. Et je me souviens encore de ce moment avec une précision aiguë. Les paupières de ma mère ont suivi le mouvement de ma main et se sont fermées délicatement. Et je me souviens d'avoir pensé à des yeux de poupée. Ma mère était une artiste et elle adorait les excentricités. Elle m'a transmis cette envie de l'étrange, de l'insolite, du singulier. Je ne crois pas vraiment avoir jamais su comment faire pour me mettre en scène. À chaque fois que j'amorce un nouveau projet, c'est comme si j'avais jamais pratiqué ce métier. Je recommence à zéro, je suis ignorante à nouveau. Avant de naître, chaque œuvre, c'est comme une énigme à résoudre. Chaque projet propose un langage différent du projet précédent. Et pour moi, il s'agit à chaque fois d'une sorte de processus d'apprivoisement, comme si je tentais d'apprivoiser un animal sauvage. Et devant une proposition à développer, je sens que je dois être calme et délicate. Et si je tente trop vite de trouver des solutions et si j'essaie trop brutalement de cerner mon sujet et que je prends des décisions hâtives, l'animal prend peur et s'enfuit. Il y a longtemps, j'ai lu une entrevue de l'artiste visuelle Georgia O'Keeffe où elle parlait de l'inspiration. Elle expliquait que les bonnes idées sont rares, qu'il faut être aux aguets parce que l'inspiration, c'est comme un souffle. Elle circule et ne fait que passer, comme une feuille au vent. Et vous devez être vif afin de l'attraper quand elle passe. Sinon, le vent, elle l'emporte au loin et l'idée tombe dans l'oubli. Attraper et apprivoiser une bonne idée relève de la chance et des coïncidences. Comme je le vois, l'art de la mise en scène a beaucoup à voir avec une sorte de configuration du désordre, une façon de déployer une histoire en reliant entre eux des éléments disparates, des textes, des corps, des images, de la lumière et des sons. Improviser avec ces éléments, les observer, les laisser vivre ensemble sans chercher à tout prix à l'efficacité des propositions. C'est chercher un rythme, une proposition scénique qui va susciter l'émotion sans qu'on comprenne pourquoi. Il faut beaucoup de silence, de réflexion et de persévérance pour trouver une manière possible de se déplacer dans le chaos, pour y tracer une ligne, pour y faire un dessin. Et je pense qu'il faut parfois ne rien faire pendant très longtemps, prendre le temps nécessaire pour que les idées intéressantes naissent d'elles-mêmes et se déploient dans toute leur étrangeté. J'utilise intentionnellement le mot étrangeté parce qu'il englobe toutes les caractéristiques du pouvoir d'attraction que les choses mystérieuses exercent sur nous. l'attrait de quelque chose qu'on voit pour la première fois et qui pourtant nous semble familier. J'aime mettre en scène l'étrangeté parce que je pense qu'elle touche la partie audacieuse de nous-mêmes, la personne en nous qui n'a pas peur, celle qui voudrait toujours exister au grand jour, mais qui est constamment refoulée à cause du conformisme de nos sociétés. Je considère que c'est un privilège que de mettre en scène et de pouvoir exposer un point de vue personnel devant un public attentif. Ce privilège vient avec une responsabilité, c'est celle d'être aventurier. Les accidents surviennent quand on est aventurier. On trébuche sur quelque chose, on tombe dans un piège et on se perd. Et c'est là que ça devient intéressant. Aux personnes qui veulent faire de la mise en scène, si je peux donner un seul conseil, ce serait soyez libres, soyez audacieux, soyez courageux. Pour échapper à l'évidence, il faut oser, il faut casser l'objet, il faut oublier son sens, le reconstruire autrement, l'observer d'un autre point de vue, l'exposer sous un autre jour. Sinon, on répétera toujours la même chose. On continuera de s'imiter les uns des autres en agissant comme des bons élèves, comme des singes savants. Être artiste, c'est le contraire de ça. Il y a une anecdote que j'aime beaucoup et qui m'a appris une grande leçon. Après le décès de ma mère, Françoise, j'ai vécu avec mon père, Marcel. Je faisais déjà du théâtre à l'époque avec une compagnie de théâtre locale dans ma ville natale, Trois-Rivières. Et on créait des pièces qui étaient souvent des adaptations de romans. J'étais très discrète sur mes activités théâtrales et j'en parlais jamais à la maison. Je pensais que ça ne concernait pas ma famille, alors je gardais ça secret. Et puis le soir, après souper, je prenais l'autobus qui m'amenait au centre-ville pour aller jouer ou répéter. Et je disais à ma famille que j'allais passer la soirée avec des amis. Et un soir, alors qu'on présentait une adaptation de roman d'Alexandre Calda qui s'appelait Le Vertige, la mise en scène était assez expérimentale, impressionniste et parfois abstraite. Et le public nous entourait sur la scène. Et on portait des costumes colorés, assez provocants. La pièce était audacieuse et ça parlait de sexe, de drogue, d'amour dans toutes ses déclinaisons. Et au milieu de l'histoire, le personnage principal, Laurent, se faisait tirer dessus. Et au moment de sa mort, je courais du centre du plateau vers un membre du public en criant « la mort, la mort ». Et je m'arrêtais devant la personne et puis je revenais au centre et je recommençais en courant vers un autre spectateur. Alors la mort, et je le fais une troisième fois. Et la troisième fois que je le fais, je tombe nez à nez avec mon père. Et mon père était assis là, dans le premier rang. Et il avait probablement lu quelque chose dans le journal à propos de la présentation. Et sans me le dire, il était venu voir la pièce. Et j'étais sous le choc de le voir là et je me suis sentie mal à l'aise jusqu'à la fin du spectacle. C'est probablement la performance la plus longue que j'ai jamais eu à faire de toute ma vie. Et dans la voiture, sur le chemin du retour, il y a eu un long silence. Et puis, mon père a dit « Bravo, ma fille, j'ai beaucoup aimé ça et je suis très fière de toi. » Et je lui ai demandé « As-tu compris quelque chose? » Et il a répondu « Bien sûr que j'ai compris. » Ça parlait du désir puis de ces affaires-là. J'ai alors réalisé que comme moi, mon père avait des désirs. J'ai pensé à mes parents. C'était la première fois que je les imaginais vraiment comme des amants. Et j'ai compris que mon père avait dû souffrir énormément en perdant la femme avec qui il partageait sa vie. Et cette nuit-là, le théâtre avait réalisé quelque chose. Cette histoire fictive que j'ai jouée sur scène avec toute ma passion m'a rapprochée de mon père. Et à ce moment-là, dans la voiture, nous avons atteint un niveau d'intimité profonde. On était tous les deux là à égalité dans cette intimité, des humains fragiles. Et depuis cet événement, je n'ai plus jamais sous-estimé la capacité de compréhension du public, la volonté du spectateur de se lancer dans une aventure inexplicable. Le théâtre, c'est se réunir pour partager quelque chose qu'on ne peut pas nommer, sentir ensemble le vent des idées passées et le souffle des esprits qui circulent dans l'air. Ensemble, pendant un court moment, voir l'invisible et entendre le non-dit, réunis dans l'étrangeté et dans l'honnêteté. Merci. Thank you.
Merci, Marie. Wow. Now we go to Sherry. Sherry J. Yoon, based in Gibson, BC, is the artistic director of Boca del Lupo. Her passion for creating new performance through collaborative pursuits has enabled her to create work in theaters, intimate performance installations, and large spectacle site-specific work. Through co-creation, collaboration, partnerships, and commissions, she has premiered and toured multiple productions. Tonight, Sherry will be speaking to us about how this space tells a story. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. And it's great being here with such talented theater artists and aspiring theater makers. And so I'm zooming in from the unsurrendered, unceded lands of the Coast Salish people, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I think it's very fitting and crucial to begin a discussion about site-specific and space and theater by acknowledging the territories where my work is made, performed, and shared. It is a privilege to gather people together, sometimes outside on the land and deep in a forest, or indoors in an old warehouse or a smaller space, like a shipping container, or even on Zoom, a shared space between the audience and the creators of the show, sometimes somewhere unfamiliar and unexpected, creating art that's live, relevant, and present. Sight influences story. It creates an experience that can be the most impactful part of the creation of new work. There's so much potential and opportunity, capturing the audience's imagination by immersing them in an unfamiliar sight. We often take for granted where we are, be it on land, in a theater, or a rehearsal hall, who is working with us, and the audiences who are here to experience the theater we create for them. We focus on what we're trying to say or show and forget to incorporate and include all that is around us. As directors, I think we're trained to think about how a play can fit into a black box, a theater space that seemingly starts as neutral. But a theater isn't neutral. It has its associations and limitations, which includes who's comfortable in that space, creators and audiences included. What is an exclusive or inclusive space in a theater, in site-specific work? Sites have their own narrative and dramaturgy, like being on a forest trail and seeing which stand of old growth trees you can be in, how high up, how many audience members are able to observe what's around them, which path to take. Form also informs content like 360 video filmed underwater, so the viewers can immerse themselves in the ocean and see what's 70 feet below. Whatever place you've chosen to bring audiences to, that I've chosen to bring audiences to, the unknown, trailblazing. When you've done it, seen it, tried it, you know all the wonder and immediacy site-specific immersive theater can hold. It's difficult to talk about site-specific theater and not mention the pandemic and consider the impact the pandemic has had in the performing arts. I think many are waiting for things to reset or go back to normal. Opportunities to produce and practice our craft have diminished in the past couple of years, throwing doubt at our ability to create work. As theater makers, we are the experts of the opposite of social distancing. So what does that mean for us? Despite the messaging we are experiencing, the truth is that we need artists now more than ever. As theater artists, we need to keep creating, keep helping us make sense of the world and show us what makes us human. The pandemic has changed me and changed how I create, how I direct and make work. Perhaps by thinking about site-specific work, we can shift our collective thoughts on what it means to be in theater by not waiting for things to restart, but by asking yourself, what is the theater I want to create now? And how will I do this when theaters are not as open and the public still doesn't feel safe seeing shows? Site-specific work does need to be a calling. You need to want to create this way. Consider the possibilities and let it excite you, not based on the limitations of not being able to be in a theater as much as you might want to be, but by what site-specific work and gathering people in an unconventional space can offer. For us as directors, creators, performers, but especially our audiences, it's not up to them to figure this out or the policymakers, as they're doing the best they can in this global crisis. It's up to us, the artists, to share the stories that reflect what is happening to us and how we want to do this. The immediacy of site-specific theater enables us to create in the moment, be reflective of a time that considers what it means to be living through a pandemic. You're an expert in your own experience right up until this very moment. So trust yourself in your creative choices. Surround yourself with artists you respect, be open to challenges, accept you'll make mistakes, and practice your craft any way you can. Some people learn by watching, but eventually you'll have to create and direct for yourself and for others. Make sure that a story grabs you and that it can carry you through your artistic vision to the world you create for us. So a few more thoughts on site-specific work, and let my thoughts guide and inspire you to do things your own way. Pick a site that transforms, a site that sparks your imagination with potential and furthers the story you want to tell. Make sure that on the site that something can happen that no one expects. If going small, like a limited audience, then build a world that can ignite the imaginations of the viewer. Plan for it to be wildly successful and find avenues for people to talk about it, even if they didn't see it. Keep things human and connected. We have so much technology disconnecting us or having us feel fragmented. No matter what form you choose, this could include immersive technology. Let it reveal to us what makes us feel human, fragile, vulnerable, and whole. Make work and direct work with real people in it. Ask artists to bring in their whole selves to the process and take care of them. Incorporate this into your vision. And also know your limitations. If you're not able to hold the vision and life experience of the people you are directing, get support, or perhaps even let go of the show you've been asked to direct and give an artist who is better fit the opportunity to shine. This last one's a very bold and scary proposition, making way for others, because it's about embracing limitations. Limitations of a room, a forest, a black box, a virtual world, and yes, your own lived experience. From directing theater on the main stages of Canada's largest companies through to the intimate confines of a phone booth, I have found that the approach is always the same. Take nothing for granted. Every space is site-specific, immersive, whatever you want to call it. My experience in making theater is about throwing it all away, convention, expectation, assumption, and start by taking a hard and honest look at where you are, who you are working with, and what's right in front of you. Thank you.
Much, Sherry, thank you. All right, and now Anne-Marie Kerr from Halifax is an award-winning theater artist who integrates vivid design, viscerally felt performances, and a precise shaping of narrative, expression, time, and space. Her work has been presented at prestigious theaters and festivals in New York, London, Mumbai, Edinburgh, Sydney, Melbourne, Memphis, Nashville, Cork, and across Canada. Tonight, Anne-Marie will be speaking to us about activating actors' imaginations. Anne-Marie.
Hello. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so nice to be here with everyone. It's very inspiring. I'm Anne-Marie Kerr. I'm coming to you tonight from Jabuktuk, which is known as Halifax in Mi'kmaq. Mi'kmaq is the unceded, ancestral, and contemporary home of the Mi'kmaq people. To any Mi'kmaq with us tonight, I offer respect and gratitude for the opportunity to work and live here. Like Micheline said, I'm going to do a little dive into one of the aspects that I love about directing, and that is working and inspiring actors. In my 20s, I so badly wanted to be a better actor. I saw a théâtre de complicité show, a Simon McBurney production called The Three Lives of Lucy Cabrol, where the actors were literally climbing the walls. A Swiss actress in the show, Lilo Bohr, transformed her body so fully that it made me shy. I looked around and I thought, are you allowed to do that on stage? The full physical metamorphosis resulted in a kind of magic realism that got at a deeper truth in the story. And I was sitting next to this actor who knew complicity and had been to the school that this company was from, École Jacques Lecoq. So I went to École Jacques Lecoq in Paris, desperate to learn to be that kind of actor. But my 2 years in Paris at that school made me a director. I remain influenced by Lecoq's pedagogy. It's in how I make theater, how I direct actors. So here are a few, 6, ways that I direct actors, things that we do in the rehearsal hall. I don't always use all these things, but often I do. Number 1, find the funny. I place high value on things that are funny. In rehearsal, we deconstruct funny things to try to figure out why they're funny, and then we push them further. Things inevitably go from funny to unfunny to really unfunny to funny again after tons of analysis. I've been accused of being a bit of a laugh addict, but it's essential to me that we have some immature behavior around laughing in rehearsal. It seems to be my channel in. Also, when actors laugh in spite of themselves, I get to know them really quickly. Number 2, if you're going through hell, keep going. I give lots of time for exploration through improv in rehearsal, like lots. It allows actors and all of us to move through the panic and the preconceived notions and for us together to find the unexpected gold. Imaginations can run wilder without the limit of time. I gently yell encouragement and provocations to keep going and going and going and going and going. Obviously, we can't keep most of that stuff, but the interior playground of the actor afterward is bigger when we go to play the scene. Number 3, don't put a hat on a hat. I bring actors into the process of diagnosing when and why things stop working in a scene. Sometimes it's because an image and text are doing the same thing and oversaturating a moment. This redundancy bogs the storytelling down. Images have their own dramaturgical power, and actors learn to feel it from the inside on stage. Number 4, encourage bad ideas. I offer them too, all the time. I model offering a clunky, barely related idea in effort to obliterate the notion that only good ideas are allowed here. We move the culture of the room out of the intellectual into the gut, into the joy. It builds involvement. It gives permission. Something happens when you listen to all ideas and actually try them. By generating bad ideas, better and more related ideas arise, and we can get closer to what the piece is about us and how to tell it. Number 5, don't just play your part. If the process allows for it, designers are with us from the first day making the show. I acknowledge that having designers in the room can't be done at all levels of theater, but there are limitations beyond that, not the least of which is financial. Designers are asked to play in the rehearsal hall with us. We take time that we need to implement their idea, and as soon as it's built, we run it, we try it. With the aesthetic world being built around them, actors can dream with us about the staging, the effects of design on the storytelling, and on their performances. There's a unity in the creation of the work. The foreignness of what each other does goes away. Number 6, stay in the shit. When actors are rehearsing high stakes moments, I side coach them to stay in the trouble, to stay open, to not resolve things, not wrap a moment up, not default to anger or sadness or resentment or find a way out of the moment, but to let us see them fully exposed in the shit of the situation. This lets us and the audience identify with them, love them for what they're going through, the hard thing that as an audience we can't face and can't do ourselves. This one is personal to me. I practice it as a director. I try to stay in the shit of the truth. I have no idea why we're in this, what we're doing exactly, but we have to keep digging into this moment, to the core of this. I know that there's something here, and sometimes there's nothing there. Number 7. Okay, I know I said 6, but there's just one more. 7, fan the flames. Exploring the bouffon has changed my life. It's given me courage and a new relationship with risk. So yeah, take risks. Bouffon is a rebellious form of theater, one that intends to rile audiences up with the goal of social action. It's political satire, and it's meant to hold up a mirror to the worst parts of humanity and expose society's hypocrisy. Character work in this form demands we go big. It insists that we go outside of ourselves to take on the politics of the enemy and engage with whatever social issue is while we're tackling the show. It's led me to make the most dangerous shows so far and take a step to speak out against injustice. Ultimately, these ways of working come from my value system. They're found in the sensibility of the clown, something we studied at the Lecoq School. As a clown, I have the ability to laugh at my own flops and share in the vulnerability of my own human failure. I revel in the creation process with a naive, open heart and a beginner's mind. I am courageous enough to let people see me so I can see them. I am unruly and subversive so actors can be too. I am in a lifelong love affair with the theater. These few points I've said are my North Stars. They're expansive. They lift me up, and I go back and back and back to them as I continue my search for truth and beauty on stage. And the deepest theatrical question of my life, are you allowed to do that on stage? Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Very good. So now I will ask everyone to join us, all the finalists to be here with us together so we can continue the conversation. It's unbelievably rare that directors get to hang out, to be in a room together. We're often in our own rooms, can be quite isolating at times. So this is a real privilege. And so I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. First of all, I'd love to see if any one of you want to respond to what the others have said. Anything that sparked your own reflection or something you can connect to or that you'd like to even move further or talk more about. I'll just open it up to any of you if there's anything you'd like to leap in onto.
I have one that is related to adapting the space and the process, which is sort of a combination of Sherry and Ravi's thoughts to the people in the room. It does feel like it happens, but to hear it stated so clearly like that, I find that very inspiring, that things are adapting and adapting according to where and who you're with, and you don't just keep laying the same process over things. That's it's a great, energizing idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, want to talk more about that? Ravi,
Yeah.
Sherry?
It's an interesting opportunity because every site is so different. And I think that when you really want to be working with the site and what your approach is, I mean, you're really stretched, mostly because there's so much opportunity. At the same time, there's so much limitation. And I do think that there is this tension that many find quite frustrating. And I think I love being in a theater because there's so much control. But I think that really it's that kind of opposing tension of two things that is where the creation process really lands in the middle of. So I think it's even how you're describing, Anne-Marie, around the bouffant and about working in opposition, I imagine, for when you think about, I think, excavating humor, I'm assuming you're also meaning about things that might not be funny, right? And you see kind of the whole cyclical nature of something that's very, very not funny to not funny. And I think I think it's in those tensions that only an artist will really push. Directors can kind of push, be it a site or be it if it's a character or an approach that I think puts an actor, imagine, a bit off balance, to be in practice of that off balance so they can come in and be in this kind of range of human being on stage. I imagine is quite a gift you give to be able to walk and have someone experience that in a creative process. It's pretty interesting.
Je vais essayer en français pour que Marie soit pas la seule personne qui parle en français, mais j'aurais dire aussi que de faire des adaptations de process ou avec l'espace, c'est d'être disponible à découvrir quelque chose. Et comme Marie t'a raconté l'histoire de ton père, c'est vraiment, si on veut que le spectateur a une réalisation ou qu'il découvre quelque chose, nous, comme des artistes, il faut qu'on soit aussi disponible à le découvrir. Alors, soit le sujet, soit l'espace, soit le process ou un autre acteur ou quelqu'un on joue avec. On a l'opportunité de découvrir quelque chose de nouveau. Et si on veut ça de le spectateur, il faut que nous comme artistes, on nous laisse dans le même état. On soit dans le même état.
J'ai beaucoup aimé. I really like that what Anne-Marie said about letting bad ideas live long. This is something I really like to do. Like in practice, it's something really good to do and very satisfying because to let things live for a while, even if they are not efficient, even if they are not interesting, because it's usually in these bad moments or in these somber episodes that suddenly you have a sort of epiphany and you find something that is precious, because it has to do with accepting to be ridiculous, accepting to go into the darkness, into the unknown, into the in order to find the gems or to live experiences that or like I've never been experienced, or to do something special. I really like that thing, that idea of letting the inefficient live for a while.
Totally. And creation can feel really inefficient a lot of the time.
Well, you have to accept to be ridiculous as well. To ridiculed and ridiculous. Yeah.
You've all touched on this idea that you all seem to talk about the living in the place of I don't know, or living in the place of discomfort, or the place of tension. Like from Suzy Maria, living in the place of ridiculousness or the bad idea. Were you always able to create in that space, or was this something that came with time and experience, or was there a moment where you came to that realization that it was necessary as part of the process, or was it always part of you somehow?
You mean, go ahead.
No, Marie, go.
No,
I was, please.
No, I just have one really simple, very clear impulse about it. And the clown exercise of trying to achieve this state of I don't understand. I don't like to live in that state. It's just the state I live in always anyway. And so the idea that I could let that in and actually act like that as a director and express everything I possibly could, and then say, okay, now it's us. Now we go together. That was a massive liberating idea for me. And it certainly wasn't there from the beginning, because I was an actor and constantly trying to get it right. So I feel I can fail way more as a director than I could as an actor, and be really not sure and bring people closer in the idea that I don't know what's coming. Well,
But you've all trained as actors, right? Yeah, you've all trained as actors. That's interesting. Ravi, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, so much of, so I went to Lecoq as well, and so much of the training is improvisation. And one of the things that is brilliant about, to your question about being in the state of unknown, I love to travel. And when you go to a place where you don't speak the language and you aren't part of the culture, and you have to react and hungry and find laughter in the fragility of not being able to communicate need, you improvise and you learn in the process so much about yourself and another person in that exchange of trying to communicate, that attempt to connect and understand each other. So much of that improv for me is the dynamic of the search of creation and that interaction between audience and performer. We're just trying to communicate and create language and culture and all that energy that's improvised.
Also, creating new work is so terrifying. Like, you're really just free falling most of the time. And so I don't know if it's comfort, but you've got to figure out how to land in that honestly and go on the ride. And the ride you have, of course, you build on the ride that it was the time before, but at the same time, there's something that's not going to be the same, which is, I'm sure, what's kept us all in it for as long as we've been in it, is that you do get both of that as well. I think that there's a kind of control and surrender simultaneously that you're trying to shape as well as work with, and being able to be free falling like that. I mean, it's a great privilege to be able to be creating new work and directing new work. But yeah, it's it's scary. And within it, you've got to find laughter and sit with the terror and sit with the frustrations and sit with the fatigue, and all of it, I think is a big part of making something new and looking right at it.
True.
Yeah, it is very true. I'm going to shift it a little bit right now. I'm curious to hear from all of you about what you consider is urgent in the work that we need to make as theater artists. Like, is something, just looking at the state of the world and where you are in your practice, what do you consider is urgent in terms of what you want to make? How do you think that urgency can inform your work, whether it's form or subject, or how it's the best way I can put it. What are you feeling the urgency from as an artist, and how does it reflect itself in your work? Marie?
I think that it's a bit unclear what I feel like, but as I said, maybe in my presentation, I think it's the to be as bold and free as one can be. I think that this is something that is absolutely essential, is to preserve the beauty. When we talk about the privilege of being on stage, this is something really that I think about a lot, that being on stage, having the privilege of being invited to go in front of people who are going to come and listen to what you have to say and listen to your point of view and be with you in that adventure is an immense privilege. There are so many people on earth. Il y a tellement de gens sur la terre, c'est extrêmement privilégié. So, I really think that this comes with a responsibility to be bold, to be free, to be experimental, to risk being ridiculous, to risk being, because it is only through that path of being free that you can provide to the audience an experience that will help them to see the world with a different eye, to sort of imagine what are the possibility, what are like different ways of evaluating reality in order to influence the world and to try to make the world becoming a better place. And I think it's only by being as close one can be to who you are and yourself and your thought, and being as generous as one can be into exposing it to the world. It's only through that path, par ce chemin, qu'on peut arriver à justement, et je pense que c'est extrêmement important que d'encourager justement to encourage people in the audience to be adventurous and to try to see the world with a free mind. For me, this is something very, very essential right now.
Wow, beautiful. Maybe
Go.
Basically everything Marie said, plus. I don't know. I think it's something related to more young minds, more young people getting given power and money and space and voice, because I think that they're a really open-hearted generation coming along. They don't put up with bullshit, that things get said right away. And it's so energizing to be around that clarity of thought, plus lots of physical energy. They're inheriting such a shitty world from us that, that I just feel like when I teach too, I feel I do more listening now than I do anything else almost. And so I would say we urgently need young minds who have position. I don't just mean, include them in some general way. I mean, give them money and place and power to speak and think. Like, we did a show one time and in a theater school, and then tried to do it later with adults. And it was like, it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work because it's the young people who can say those things. They can say all the scandalous things still. But at a certain age, it's like, oh, you're allowed to say that. But this cast, they could say anything in this play. It was a Cliff Cardinal play. They could say all that. It was so, that was so interesting to me.
Great. Ravi?
Yeah, I was gonna. I guess I was gonna say, in terms of what's going on in the world, and I really believe that the processes that we undertake, the rooms that we create, the revolutions, they can be revolutionary, because kind of what Marie was saying, that in order to free ourselves, in order to be free, in order to be as free as possible, like in the real world, that's not possible. There are all kinds of external forces that govern the world, govern the choices and the access and the privileges and what the successes people can have. But in the rooms that we create, we can actually build a revolutionary world where the tougher, harder choices are possible, where we can choose love and empathy, where we can see beauty in and give and empower someone who in the world has no power, but in our room we empower. And we say, you will carry this story. You will be the person we look to for reason, for lessons, for whatever, to make us laugh. And as an audience, I see then the possibility of a new world, because the revolution is what you're showing me is against the world that I know, where these types of people are only given this type of power, and I only see the world one way. But in our rooms, if we make the harder choices of empowering those who don't have it, in finding the fully of reason that doesn't exist in the world, that's how we make revolutions. And then the work we show hopefully inspires someone to say, wow, we can do that. That person can inspire me like that. So on the street, I see this superhero. In the play, I see that person as a superhero. So when I go and buy a coffee and I see a similar person like that person, who I might never see, they're invisible to me. I might see them now, and I might be moved by them. I might see opportunity in them to inspire me.
It's been great what everyone's been saying. I agree with everything that's been said. For me, I know sitting deeply during the pandemic, I think the first year that we were really in it, and realizing, I think everyone remembers that moment where, right, this has stopped, right? Something has shifted and we don't really know what the next step is. And to really sit as an artist and sit with that thought and say, what now? What does this look like? Something you can't control the next 5 years. So what if you made a 5-year plan? What would it be? What does this look like? And the answer, it had to be okay that it's over for me, that it's done. And to not be afraid of that, because I thought that was my job, to really look at that. And I came out really hopeful, and I was quite surprised. I came out hopeful because I feel that some of the best work is yet to be made. Some of the best artists are yet to come forward, especially in this amazing country. And I feel like it's important to encourage people to keep creating, keep directing, try to do work in whatever avenue that you can. Don't be limited to what theater is. Not to just replace theater or change its form, or to be in opposition of inside a theater, outside a theater, is it online? Really start blending that idea and try to keep us connected, keep connecting us with what theater does best. And I think that it's hard. I think people are, we talk about being terrified or frozen. I think it's a very different thing that's going on, but I think that in any way to encourage people to keep creating work from who they are and where they're at, I think I think it's crucial. I think it's actually urgent and quite paramount. And for people not to be afraid that it will be bad. Everything's not going to be good, but you've got to keep trying, got to keep putting work out there.
That's great. Thank you. So on that hopeful note, just one more question before we turn to the National Theatre School students who are also having some pretty great questions. I'm going to quote Ravi, actually, and I'd like you all to respond to this. It's good, Ravi, trust me. Ravi, you said something about motivating your collaborators to go beyond what they think is possible, motivating people you work with with fearlessness and joy. And I found that I almost cried when I read that because fear is so is our enemy. It's so present in so many ways all the time. And when I saw that encouragement with fearlessness and joy in that fearlessness, and I think all of you in your work, from what I've witnessed, what I've read, you've done that. You are incredible collaborators. You work alongside people through the entire process. It's of great value to you. So I'd like to know from each of you how you infuse that, because I think you do in a way, and maybe Ravi, you can kick it off, of inspiring people you work with to enter that place of fearlessness and joy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Anne-Marie said it really well, and people echoed it in terms of bad ideas are good and sit in the shit. And leading by example that way, being the goof and showing that you try a bad. You try a bad joke, and you make people laugh, and there you go. That's it. You make a really bad joke, and people will follow. People will be free to do that. And it's really like jumping out of a plane, and that we all want to do that. How do we all say we're going to jump? And how we say that, how we actually jump out of the plane, is to know that someone has got them, and that the room's job to inspire the room. I mean, ultimately that I'll hold anyone that falls, but that we can inspire the room to do that it's not just me, that the room will be the cushion no matter what. It's impossible to fall. And we all have to jump. And everybody wants to jump. Everybody wants to. That's why they do this. And they just have to know that we will all be caught, and we will. And and part of the fear now in the conversation now too is, well, what happens when a problem comes up? And it's very Canadian to avoid problems. And how do we just say it's okay? Accountability is not a scary thing. I can say I made a mistake. I can say I'm sorry, and I can learn from that mistake, and we can move on. So accountability is part of that, and being an idiot is part of that.
Anybody else wants to talk about being an idiot?
I agree with what you said about you kind of put yourself on the line in order to open up that thing, like fail early and hard, so people can feel like, oh, that's the level of bad we're talking about here. There's this falling forward thing that kids do, where they just let themselves fall off balance, and at the very last second they catch themselves. And there's a little thrill of like adrenaline, a little risk that they take. I like that exercise. I feel like it's a good sort of metaphor for it's going to be okay. Your body's going to save you. Your foot's going to step. It's okay. It might be late. You might kind of trip a bit, but you might fly a bit too. And I try to keep that metaphor in my head of, we kind of got to tip off into this out of control place where you feel wild and out of yourself for a second. And then we see what we have. I don't know how exactly this relates, but there's the tiniest little anecdote that still makes me laugh. I hope it makes you laugh. So Leanne Vardy is this lighting designer in Halifax and designs all over the place. And it was the first play I ever directed, which was actually my husband on my honeymoon. I was directing his solo show. And Leanne designed this beautiful little quadrant design on a 4x4 stage, just like 4 little blocks of light. And he was just going to move in and out. It's going to be this beautiful trick. And I'd never directed anything. So I didn't know the lighting designer was going to come and show ideas. So, okay, so we're looking and it's fabulous. And Anthony's doing all the stuff. And I said to Leanne, can you imagine? And she goes, I did imagine that's what we're looking at here. And I was so like embarrassed, and we laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And just like, it was such a stupid thing to say. But it really just came from a true thing of like, can you imagine if we would do something like that on stage? So something in that territory of, yeah, just being okay to be the biggest idiot, like Ravi said there. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Just have a couple of minutes left before we turn over to the National Theatre School student. Marie, veux-tu ajouter quelque chose?
Oui, peut-être. Je pense toujours à chaque fois, each time that I'm starting a project, à chaque fois que je démarre un projet, je dis souvent qu'on n'est pas là pour créer comment dire, pour créer un objet parfait, ou on n'est pas là pour prouver quoi que ce soit. We are there to prove anything. We're there to live a life experience, to vivre une expérience de vie ensemble. Et c'est cette expérience de vie qui va être transmise par le spectacle. So as soon as we agree on that we are there to live a life experience, we are just like a bunch of friends together. And I always say like the one really good thing to do when you begin a work is to have a meal all together and get drunk. And from then on, there's a sort of a familiarity that happens. And then you are together, and that you are like, and I like as well to feel like it's precious for me, like to choose the right people, because some people are scared of going into these adventures, and it's okay too, because they prefer to do something else. So I like to surround myself with people who are adventurous. It doesn't have to do with shyness. Some people are shy, some people are not, but shy people can be adventurous. I feel that there's something in the people, like they are artists, they are poets, they are willing to do that. And so, yeah, that's maybe what I have to say about that.
Sherry?
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, because I know that it's very, it can be very terrifying. It's hard to feel fearless when you're operating in the unknown, and all kinds of people are involved. Sometimes they're not theater folks as well. And so I try to create and present an idea or a vision or a thing that people can all hang on to. So the vision is something outside of us. And when we look at that, we're like, yeah, it's going to be hard, but it's valuable to try to get to this. It's valuable. It's meaningful. There's a connection. And even though we might seem like a disparate group of people, we get why we're here, and we get why to go for that, because all of it's hard work. So it needs to matter to the group and go on the ride. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so now I think I'm good to turn it over to the questions from the directing students at the National Theatre School. National Theatre School, which has been a longtime partner of the Siminovitch Prize. So our first question, and Evelyne, faut que tu m'aides ici avec ton nom de famille, Landé-Chortal.
Oui, c'est bien. Landé-Chortal, c'est bien comme ça.
Okay. Alors, la première question est d'Evelyne pour Ravi, en fait. Alors, vas-y, Evelyne.
Merci beaucoup. Puis merci beaucoup aussi. C'était très intéressant de vous écouter. Donc, ma question, aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, la conception de ce qu'est la mise en scène varie selon la personne qui la pratique, autant lorsqu'on pense à la place du texte dans la représentation, au rôle du ou de la metteur en scène dans l'équipe de création, ou au rapport entre l'art et la société. Qu'est-ce que faire de la mise en scène veut dire pour vous dans votre manière de pratiquer et de réfléchir votre profession?
Bon, c'est une grande question. Pour moi, pour moi, d'être un metteur en scène, c'est vraiment, comme je disais, comme tout le monde disait, j'ai commencé comme un acteur et comédien et j'étais sur scène. Et là c'était un métier, un travail de facilitate, d'être un partie de l'histoire et de faciliter l'histoire et le process. Et pour moi, ce que j'aime, c'est d'être le host, comme Marie disait, elle aime le grand dîner et de boire. C'est moi qui veux inviter tout le monde chez moi et de manger ensemble, de parler ensemble, de boire ensemble et de créer, comme je disais, créer l'espace où quelque chose peut arriver. Et pour moi, être metteur en scène, c'est de faire ça avec la compagnie des acteurs, mais aussi avec tout le monde qui vient. Là, c'est un espace où quelque chose peut arriver, un grand débat, un grand amour, quelque chose joyeux, nouveau, inspiring. Et pour moi, c'est ça, c'est de créer des connexions, de rassembler tous des gens de différentes expériences ensemble et de dire, allez, quelque chose peut arriver. Et de peut-être proposer une idée ou une blague ou quelque chose qui peut créer quelque chose à. Et ça, c'est pour moi, ça c'est ce que j'aime, ça c'est la chose que je pense qu'être metteur en scène, c'est ça, c'est de ramener, de rassembler tous des gens des différentes expériences et dire, voilà, on peut jouer. Merci.
Merci Evelyne pour la question. Merci Ravi pour la réponse. Our next question is from Danik McPhee. Hey Danik, nice to see you again. For Anne-Marie. Go ahead, Danik.
Yes. First of all, thank you to all of you. This has been very inspiring. Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hi.
My question comes in two parts for you.
Okay.
First is, what is the biggest challenge you foresee a director encountering throughout their career? And in your opinion, what are the strategies they can use to overcome this challenge?
What a wonderful question. I think the biggest challenge is ourselves. It certainly has been the case for me. Having to kind of come to terms with the things that I actually like on stage, to really admit when I find joy, not things I should like or ways I should be, that's taken me a long time. So if I were to offer from my experience, it's been, I've grown into being okay that I can be kind of anti-intellectual in the room. And that we speak in terms of the body before we speak about the text sometimes, that feels really not Canadian. It's been, the text has led the way. And I Ravi and I had that training at Lecoq, and I know French training is very different as well, but I finally felt like I could invent in different ways. Now, here's a kind of flip side to this. I had an experience one time where I thought I had failed really badly in a masterclass at Night with Theatre. We had to direct some scenes in front of like very fancy established directors. And some things really went genuinely wrong in the room. But I kind of danced and figured it out and whatever. But later I was to talk with my mentor and she asked how I thought it went. And I said, clearly terribly. And she said to me, do not be falsely modest. You actually know what you did in there. And that was like, that still blows my mind because she was right. There were a lot of things that were awesome. And that when I got into my groove, I knew went well. So there's something about that. It's like in conference, you're kind of against yourself. So start figuring out what you love. Find the people that you love, that you're attracted to. And it's okay. They don't have to be the coolest people. See everything. Travel if you can, even travel a little bit outside of where you live. And you know, I guess that's what I would say. And it's okay. It takes a long time. It takes a long time to figure out what you like and how to even say it on stage in your own particular way. You know, I'm old now. It's taken me a really long time. I'm very slow in it too, but it's okay. Have patience with yourself. But I think your biggest challenge is yourself.
Thank you. I needed to hear that today. So that's good. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. OK. La prochaine question est d'Emmanuel Frappier pour Marie. Bonjour, Emmanuel. Alors, voilà.
Bonjour tout le monde. Merci beaucoup pour vos partages et votre humour. C'est très inspirant. Alors voilà, Marie, il y a une question qui m'habite depuis quelques moments qui est par rapport à la société dans laquelle on vit. On est dans une société de performance où tout va très vite, où on manque d'argent et de temps. Puis on dirait que l'école, ça me fait rendre compte que souvent on est à l'école de 8 heures le matin à 10 heures le soir. Puis je me demande comment faire en sorte de créer des œuvres sensibles et déposées quand on est dans une société qui nous pousse à aller toujours plus rapidement.
C'est une excellente question. Moi, et c'est une chose à laquelle je réfléchis beaucoup depuis quelques années. J'ai eu le privilège d'obtenir une aide financière du Fonds national de création du CNA il y a quelques années. Et avant que je fasse la demande, avant que je dépose un projet, la personne qui était responsable du Fonds national est venue me voir, Heather Moore, et elle m'a dit, Marie, bon, on imagine éventuellement créer un fonds pour aider des artistes à créer des œuvres peut-être plus élaborées que ce que leurs moyens leur permettent. Elle m'a dit, vous, si par exemple vous aviez tout à coup plus d'argent que normalement, de quoi vous avez besoin? Et j'ai répondu, j'ai besoin de temps. Qu'est-ce que vous feriez avec cet argent-là? Je prendrais le temps. Parce que, mais j'aime beaucoup, il y a une citation qui est, on dit que c'est, je crois, Marguerite Duras qui a dit ça. Peut-être c'est pas la bonne référence, mais qui disait un génie, c'est quelqu'un qui ne fait rien pendant très, très longtemps. Et j'adore... for those who didn't get it, a genius is someone who does nothing for a very, very long time. Et j'adore cette métaphore parce que pour attraper, des fois je dis une bonne idée, ça coûte cher. Parce que ça prend beaucoup de temps, ça prend beaucoup de silence, d'immobilité, et souvent, je trouve effectivement qu'on est dans un système quand, par exemple, on crée à l'intérieur d'institutions où on a beaucoup de limitations, on est forcé à tirer sur les fleurs pour qu'elles poussent. Et c'est toujours, évidemment, une mauvaise manière que de provoquer les choses comme ça tout le temps en ayant des délais et tout. Moi, j'ai la chance de pouvoir souvent créer en dehors des institutions, ou si je le fais à l'intérieur des institutions, j'amène mon désordre avec moi. Et mon désordre, c'est aussi une désorganisation parce que c'est nécessaire d'être désorganisé, de créer un chaos, de regarder pendant longtemps quelque chose qui fonctionne pas, d'observer le manque d'harmonie avant qu'on puisse voir le petit endroit où il faut tirer quelque chose. Alors, c'est très difficile, voire impossible de créer sans qu'on ait le temps. Et le moyen que je trouve, moi, quand je crée des objets, c'est que j'étale sur quelques années, des fois, des recherches. Alors, je travaille 2 semaines ici, je laisse déposer pendant quelques mois, ensuite je retravaille à nouveau pendant 2 ou 3 semaines. Et ça fait que je travaille pas nécessairement longtemps en continu sur la même chose, mais ça fait que je crée une chose et je laisse à cette chose le temps d'exister un moment avant que je prenne des décisions. Et ça, c'est bien parce que la chose vit un temps. Et avec le temps, je crois beaucoup à la capacité de l'esprit d'organiser les choses. Notre inconscient travaille beaucoup, je crois beaucoup à ça. On crée un chaos et puis on dort. Et pendant notre sommeil, l'esprit va aller chercher un peu l'essence de ce qu'on a mis sur la table. Et ça, c'est que le temps qui nous permet cela. Alors, je trouve ça effectivement dommage et je pense qu'il faut insister pour avoir le temps. Ouais.
Ah, merci beaucoup, vraiment.
Merci.
Bienvenue.
Our final question is from Allison Kelly. Hi, Allison, for Sherry.
Hi, Sherry. How are you?
Huh? Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you to all 4 people and to Micheline as well. It's been really lovely to listen to you all speak. Sherry, my question has a couple of parts. So I'm wondering if you could go back to school now to a place where product really wasn't, like it was much more about process than product. How would you use the time? And would that differ from what you currently cultivate in your professional practice? And then I guess the end of that question is, what would you tell a new director who's at school to focus on?
So my practice is about process. And so I enjoy creating and directing work where process is like the instrumental thing in rehearsal and in the key creation component of the work as well. So like, for example, we're currently touring a piece between 2 telephone booths. The show has no actors. And so this takes place between 2 audience members. So, rehearsal and development is all process. Right? It doesn't move with any kind of regular rhythm of
I've
anything.
done the show actually. I'm from Newfoundland, and you did a co-pro with the Hall.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so great. I did it with my mom.
Oh, we had a great time there. It was the best there. I mean, I wasn't there. The booths went without any humans. So during lockdown everywhere, our show was, I think, the lone show touring the country, leaving every city, and then it's going code red. And then we go everywhere, we go code red. So we were able to do it. And again, it was an experiment, but also because of the amazing, amazing people at the hall and to be able to have that go so smoothly and offer something. So I'm glad you got a chance to try it. So you can imagine as I'm getting in there, when we're in Banff thinking, oh, I was like, oh my gosh, no, this is very demanding. The tech is very demanding. And we're hoping it looks effortless, that the experience should feel about the connection and not about all the hidden technology. But that's fundamentally, though it looks like its product in its approach was all process. And so I like that kind of work. I like thinking about it like that. The pressure's always on because there's always going to be an end date, but it's kind of good pressure, be it a year, 2 year, 5 year, something that's in the works, but it's always in the works with people who will come in and you will share that piece. It doesn't sit, no matter what, you want to be able to be ready to give it away in whatever that means and learn about it at that point too. So thoughts for a new director, I'd say figure out what your passion is about directing, right? And then lean into that as much as possible. So if you don't know yet, make as much work as you can to figure that out. It's that passion or question or whatever that thing that hooks and grabs you, it's going to pull you through, anchor you, and be that touchstone throughout your whole artistic journey. So be rigorous. It's really not about making it you having your value mirrored by what you're passionate about. That's not what I mean. What's the thing, right? It's its own barometer of success and failure. It's different than what's all out there. It's really important because if you're endlessly curious about that thing, every show will be great. The good and the bad, they're all going to be great. It's building your artistic journey as who you are as an artist and what you have to give to all of us, which is very valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Great.
Wow.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. So we have a couple of minutes left, and I'm going to ask you one last question and try to give me a very short answer, which will be impossible, but try, because we should end on a dream. We should end with that kind of hope and, I don't know, the excitement of what's now in order. Anyway, what is a project, if you had to think, what is a project you'd like to do that actually feels impossible? I'm sure you have those in your back pocket.
I'm tempted to say the next one.
That's great. That's specific. It's totally specific.
I know that. Mine is something like a very ambitious circus show where I walk the tightrope, but the metaphor for death defying is like telling truth or telling secrets or something like that, but it's legit circus, like really fire eating and everything, but people have to tell secrets and reveal their real selves.
Awesome.
I have a piece in mind where it really incorporates all the things like a theater or the makings of theater, but also our phones and live feed and what takes place on site, what can take place simultaneously on people's screens. And so it's a real collapsing in on itself of live work, live camera feed, what's pre-recorded. Don't think the technology is there yet to be able to do it, which is exciting. So you keep at it and keep trying to experiment. But I think there's something around that where there's also real non-actors involved and also actors involved, and the lines blur between participant and viewer, like it is out in the world, and then also what we could be receiving at home at the same time. So the multiple experiences will not be the same, but somehow the world and how we want to connect will hold that. And then we need the technology to have that happen. So it's an ambitious idea, which for me is not just about ambition, like I want it bigger, better, more techie. That's not what it is. It's really about taking all these elements more on a lateral level, more than like be better, and see what we're pulling and what is the world we're all inhabiting. And as an artist, how can we frame that to enable us to think, oh yeah, this is theater and it can be something else and it can be for anybody who wants to enter. So.
So I have two impossible things that are happening simultaneously. So there's life with my new 17-month-old kid.
Yes.
Being a little dad. That's an impossible journey. And then I'm working on the culmination of a piece that's been 8 years in the making, the Mahabharata, which is this major Indian epic. And then, so doing that and being a dad has been really surreal. And it feels impossible.
That's amazing. That's amazing. He's beautiful.
He's cute.
Thank you so much. What an amazing, wow, we could stay here for a really long time. Thank you, Marie, very much. Merci, merci, Ravi.
Thank you.
Anne-Marie, Sherry,
Merci.
for sharing such incredible, visionary and sensitive and thoughtful and moving thoughts that we can walk away with, practical and also, and soul searching, soul grabbing. So thank you so much. I've learned a lot. And thank you everyone who joined us tonight. And I'm sure that you had an amazing evening like I did. Merci beaucoup à tout le monde d'avoir été parmi nous. And until the next one, and it's been a real privilege. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.